Hi, this is Krista at the Secret Yarnery. Today we are making this gorgeous Christmas cactus crochet plant. If English isn't your first language, you can click this gear on the video and scroll through to find your preferred dialect. With this pattern, you can immerse yourself in the art of crochet and bring nature's beauty indoors. Whether you're a seasoned crochet enthusiast or just starting out, my tutorials provide clear and concise instructions that will bring you through each step. This charming crochet cactus is not just limited to the holiday season, it can add a touch of magic to your home all year round. Unlike real plants, our crochet cactus requires no maintenance or watering, allowing you to enjoy its beauty without any fuss. It's an ideal choice for those who want to add a touch of nature to their surroundings while keeping things low maintenance and long lasting. To make the easy crochet Christmas cactus, you will need some green yarn. You will need some yarn for your flowers. You can use a pink or a coral usually. I'm using this coral color. And also a lighter shade of the flower color. If you are using pink, a lighter pink. If you are using coral, a lighter coral. And you will also need some brown yarn for your dirt. You will need some floral wire. These come just by the pack, and you can get them on Amazon. I'll put a link down below. You'll also need a pair of pliers. The skinnier at the tip, the better for folding over our wire. You'll also need a terracotta pot, just the kind you get from your plant shop. You will need a 5mm crochet hook, a 4mm crochet hook, a pair of scissors, and a darning needle. And if you want to follow along with written pattern, all of my patterns are available on my website, secretyarnery.com, and you don't have to worry about being able to read a pattern. All of my patterns are written in plain English, just like I was sitting there right beside you. Here are the timestamps. You can jump back into where you left off, and let's get started. So to make the leaves, it is a multiple of 6 plus 2. So each of these sections is 6 stitches plus 2 at the end of your row. So the largest we're going to do is 6 sections, and the smallest you want to do is probably 3 sections. But that, of course, is up to you. Every plant can be different. So what you'll need is your floral wire, your 5mm crochet hook, your pliers, and your 4 worsted weight, just regular acrylic green color for your sections, for your leaves. So we're just going to start by making a chain. You want to leave a tail because we're going to use our tail for sewing things together later. So leave about a 6-inch tail. Make a slip knot any which way that you normally do. Shrink it down and put it onto your hook. For the large size, we'll be chaining 38. So that's 36 plus 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you want to make smaller leaves, you can chain 20, chain 26, chain 32, and for the large one, it is a chain 38. So here is my chain 38, and now we need our wire. Take your pliers, and one of the tips, we want to just turn it over. We want to make a U shape. We don't need too long of a stick, maybe about that much, less than a centimeter, 1/4 inch maybe. And just using the tiniest bit of your pliers, fold it back down. You want it to be straight, just a little hook like that. And you want the tip part to be as tiny as it can be, because this is hard to pinch later. So that's pretty much what we are looking for. So we're done with our pliers for now. Hold your wire in your non-dominant hand with the hook facing up and away from you. And now just pretend we're crocheting. Just kind of try to forget about that wire. So if we roll our chain, our pretty little chain to the side, we see these camel bumps or the back loops, and that is where we're going to be working into. The first is right underneath our working yarn. So there's 1, 2, 3. We're looking for the second back loop or the second camel bump. And we are going to slip stitch. So working into the second camel bump, I'm just going to pull it onto my hook. Like that. Now I have my working yarn over top of my wire and my hook underneath. I'm just going to grab my working yarn, bring it through, turn and slip stitch. So that has us started onto our wire. Now into the next stitch, the next camel bump, we are working into the back loops. It'll make it easier for the next row. So we're going to work into each of these camel bumps or back loops along the back side of our chain. Wrap your yarn. We're going to make 3 double crochets into the next chain right here. Grab your yarn and bring it through that stitch. So now my hook is on top of my wire. Grab the yarn again and finish your double crochet. Wrap your yarn and go back down into the same stitch and underneath the wire. Grab your yarn and bring it back underneath the wire. Grab your yarn and bring it through 2. Grab your yarn and bring it through 2. And we're going to do one more. So this stitch is getting 3 double crochets. So wrap your yarn into the same stitch and underneath the wire. Grab the yarn and bring it back. Grab the yarn from on top of the wire. Wrap and take off 2. Wrap and take off 2. So this is the fussy bit. It's a slow go, just kind of poke along at it, and the rest of it will be faster. But this is slow, so take your time. The next is a half double crochet. So wrap your yarn and find the next back loop. It is right here. So wrap your yarn, poke that stitch onto your hook or slide it on to your hook. You would just want that one back loop on your hook. Hook underneath the wire, yarn on top of the wire. Grab the yarn and bring it back under. Grab the yarn and take off all 3 loops. So that is our half double. Wrap your yarn, slide that next back loop onto your hook, underneath the wire. Grab your yarn and bring it back, and do your double crochet. There's our first one. And we're going to do that one more time. So 2 double crochets into the same stitch. So into the same back loop, underneath the wire. Grab your yarn and bring it back, and do your double crochet. So that's what we have so far. Next stitch is a half double. So find the next back loop right here. We want to make sure we're always working into the stitch and underneath the wire. So wrap your yarn into the next stitch. Just slide it onto your hook, underneath the wire, and 1 half double crochet. So that's taking off all 3 loops, just like that. And now into the next 2 stitches, we're just going to do 1 single crochet into each stitch. So slide the next back loop on, underneath the wire, grab and bring it back. On top of the wire, wrap and take off 2. That's a single crochet and 1 single crochet into the next back loop. So slide it onto your hook, underneath the wire, grab your yarn and bring it back. On top of the wire, grab your yarn and bring it through 2. So that completes the first section. We're just going to keep doing this all the way along our chain. So here is the repeat into the next back loop, the next camel bump, slide that stitch onto your hook, underneath the wire, wrap and bring it back, and this stitch gets 3 double crochets. So 3 double crochets into the same stitch. That was 1. We're working on number 2. And here is number 3, all into the same stitch. Next is a half double crochet. So slide the next back loop onto your hook, underneath the wire, and 1 half double crochet. Next is 2 double crochets into the same stitch. So back loop on your hook, hook underneath the wire, grab your yarn and bring it up. Grab your yarn and do 2 double crochets. So there is 1 and 2 into the same stitch. Next is half double crochet. So find the next back loop, slide it onto your hook, underneath the wire, and half double crochet. And the next is 2 single crochets, 1 into each of the next 2 stitches. So next back loop on your hook, underneath the wire, grab your yarn and bring it back, wrap and take off 2. Again, slide the next back loop onto your hook, underneath the wire, grab the yarn and bring it up, grab the yarn and take off 2. So that finishes our second section, and we're just going to keep repeating that all the way along our chain. So now you can pause the video and keep working along, doing the same repeat. So 3 double crochets into 1 stitch, half double crochet, 2 double crochets into the next, half double into the next, and then 1 single crochet into each of the next 2. So 3 double crochet, half double, 2 double crochet, half double, and 2 single crochets. And your double crochets are always into the same stitch. Those are the stitches that we keep together. So there's never a double crochet on its own. So pause the video and keep working along, and I'll meet you when you get to the end of your chain. If you take a break and have to come back to making your leaf and you kind of forget how to hold it, just put that wire back in your hand and try to forget about it. Try to just get your crochet working. When you're starting, your working yarn will be on top of your wire and your chain, we want it below, and pretend it's not there. Then into your crochet, just remember to start underneath the wire. So forget about your wire, and working yarn on top, and then start by putting your hook under your wire to grab that yarn. So that's how you want to come back to it if you are taking a break. At the end of your chain, you're going to end on those 2 single crochets. If you only have 1 chain left, or if you have 3 chains left, like if your stitch count is off, don't stress out about it. It's fine. It's a leaf. They can all be a little bit unique. In a perfect world, you'll have these 2 stitches left for your 2 single crochets at the end. Just like that. So we have our 6 sections for the large leaf, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And now we are ready to turn and come back. So I'm going to be calling this row 1, and now we're going to be starting row 2. So to do row 2, just kind of spin your work around. We're not actually flipping it, we're just kind of moving it around. Get this tail out of the way, just pull it to the side. We don't really need it. And now into the very same stitch, our very first chain right here, we're going to put 2 single crochets, but on the other side coming back. So this way. Put your hook in, and 1 single crochet, and 1 more single crochet into the same stitch. Now we have turned. We're ready to work our way back along. So now we just do the opposite order of what we did before. So into the next stitch right here, and now we're just working into these V's, which is why we worked into our back loops. We're working into each of these stitches going back down, doing almost the same thing. So into the next stitch is 1 single crochet, 1 half double into the next, 2 double crochet into the next, 1 and 2, 1 half double into the next, and into that stitch where we put the 3 double crochets, we're going to be putting 4 double crochets coming back. So it gets an extra double crochet. So 4 double crochets. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now we're going to work around the whole stitch. So if you spread out your sections, you'll see you have your 2 single crochets. put your thumb or your thumbnail over that second single crochet just so you can kind of reserve that space. And then put your hook underneath all of your work. Grab your yarn. We're going to slip stitch around all of it. So one little slip stitch like that. Into the stitch that you're covering up with your thumb, that single crochet, that is going to be a single crochet. So into the next stitch, one single crochet. Into the next stitch, one half double crochet. Into the next are two double crochets. There's one. And here is two. Into the next stitch, half double crochet. And into the next are four double crochets. There is one, two, three, and four. So now find those two single crochets and cover up that one that you want to make sure you don't go over top of, just so it's easier to see when you're done this slip stitch. So now put your hook right underneath all of your work. Grab your yarn, bring it back under, turn your hook, and slip stitch. You want to pinch those sections apart. Now moving your thumb a little bit, you'll see that next stitch, that single crochet, and into the single crochet you do your single crochet. So one single crochet. And now you just keep going with your pattern. You can see your half double is your next stitch right here. So half double, two double crochets, half double, four double crochets, and a slip stitch and a single, and you just start again. So pause the video and keep working your way up, doing the same thing we just did. So it'll look like this, and we're just going to keep going doing that same repeat all the way up. So into the first stitch, half double crochet. Into the next, two double crochet. One and two into the same stitch. Into the next, half double crochet. Into the next, four double crochet. Two, three, and four. Slip stitch around the whole leaf. So hook underneath everything, grabbing the yarn, bringing it back, turning your hook, and make one tight little slip stitch. Because you really want those sections separated with that slip stitch. Into the next stitch, single crochet, and now keep working your way along, doing the same thing we have been doing. So starting with a single crochet, a half double, two double crochets into the same stitch, a half double, four double crochets into the same stitch, and then a slip stitch. So pause the video and keep doing that all the way up, and I'll meet you when you get to the end of your row. When you reach the end of your row, I've finished my four double crochets. Now we are just going to slip stitch. So if you turn your work like this, you can see your first stitch. And this does not actually really matter. Like exactly where it's going to be. I'm just going to find a stitch this one here. So I'm jumping over to this side, and I just want to get on that first real stitch right there. And I'm just going to slip stitch. So into that stitch, a slip stitch. And I'm not worried about the wire. I'm not worried about anything really. So, and then chain 1, cut your yarn. Now again, you want to leave a long tail because we're going to be sewing around our wire and everything with this yarn. So leave a long tail, maybe 7 inches, and pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down. So leave your tails. We'll need those later. So pause the video and go ahead, make a bunch of these. You can use, the smallest amount would be about 16. 16 would be for a thinner, more realistic cactus, and 24 would be a lush, the biggest cactus you can make kind of thing. So depending on how many you want to do, go ahead and get a bunch of these done. Are you enjoying this tutorial? Go ahead and hit this button under this video right now so you don't miss out on any more quick and easy fun tutorials just like this. To make your flowers, get the yarn you're using for your flowers. You will need a pair of scissors, a darning needle, and your smaller 4mm crochet hook. You want to start this one with a longer tail. We might be using this for sewing them on also. So go ahead and leave a 5 or 6 inch tail. Make a slip knot and shrink it onto your hook. Chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. I want to form this into a ring, so we want to go right into that first chain we made. So this is our knot. We want to go into that first chain. Just slide your hook in any which way, doesn't really matter. And flip it all up. Now you want to hold this open like a little U shape so that you know where to put your hook. So just kind of pinch that, and using some tension, make 1 slip stitch. So bring your yarn through and through, chain 1. I'm still holding it open with my finger and thumb. Put your hook in to the center of that ring. You can get rid of this tail, just kind of hold it behind, so we're forgetting about it, and make 6 single crochets. So now we can let go. Here is our first single crochet. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now we're going to be working into the first single crochet we made right here. So this is our chain 1. We're ignoring it. We're going into our first single crochet. So into the first single crochet, make 1 single crochet, and 1 into each stitch. So this counts as our number 1 stitch, our first stitch of that round. We're always going to be counting in 6s for the flowers. So here is 1. If you might be disturbed while you're making your flowers, you can put a stitch marker here on that first stitch, and that will mark your number 1. So the next stitch, here is 2. 3. 4, 5, and 6. So after we've done our 6 single crochet, we're going to do our first petal. So to start a petal, chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now roll that onto its side. We're looking for those back loops again. The first one is right underneath our working yarn. So there's 1, 2, and 3. We're going to work into the third chain. So into the third chain, we're going to do a slip stitch. That turns it into a bit of a picot. So bring your yarn back, turn, and bring it through. Into the next stitch, so we're going to work into these 3 stitches, 1, 2, and 3. So into the first one, wrap your yarn and 1/2 double crochet. So just slide that back loop onto your hook, 1/2 double crochet, into the next stitch, 1 double crochet, and into the next 1/2 double crochet. So there is our first petal. Now we're going to go into the next stitch. That's where our stitch marker is. We can take that out now. But you can keep it handy if you're going to be interrupted. You can always kind of keep track of your first stitch with that. So into the next stitch, 1 single crochet, and into the next stitch, 1 single crochet. 1 more petal. So chain 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We'll do a little picot. So into the third chain, slip stitch. There's our picot. Into the next stitch, 1/2 double crochet. Into the next, 1 double crochet. And into the next, 1/2 double crochet. Just like that. Now we're going to find our next stitch. So we're always working in 6s, or we're keeping our 6 stitches from our original ring. So into the next 2 stitches, 1 single crochet into each. 1, and into the next 2. Now we're ready to do our next petal. Chain 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Roll your chain over, look for that third stitch, do your picot, so your slip stitch into the third chain. Wrap your yarn, half double into the next. Wrap your yarn, double into the next, double crochet. And into the next, half double. Now we have 2 stitches left for our row from our original 6. So 1 single crochet into each. There's our first one and our second. So there's our 2 single crochets. So that finishes the row. So for the next row, we are going to be ignoring our leaves or our little petals. We're going to be working into just the 2 stitches between each of them. So we're going to be working into this stitch here and that stitch, and again here, 1 and 2. So we're ignoring the entire petal and we are working from the back. So we have to kind of fold that inside, and we want to look for those 2 single crochets, and we're going to be working into them. So our first single crochet is right there. And yes, this is awkward, but it's going to get our petals lying in the right direction. So we have to go from behind to in front. So you might want to be pushing on a table or your leg, something. So we have to go from inside to get that first single crochet. And we want to make 1 single crochet and 1 single crochet into the next. See, so that is a bit awkward. And if it's awkward for you, yes, it will be. Sorry, got to do it. So now there are 2 single crochets between the next 2 petals. We want to be going into that first one right here from inside. So we have to fold that petal in, push it down onto the table or something. You have to kind of get your hook into that first single crochet right there. Get some tension. You want to really pinch that petal inside and make 1 single crochet. And 1 single crochet into the next stitch. So we have 2 petals pinched in. We just have to pinch in this last one here. So again, pushing it onto a table, we can see that just that one stitch right here, that is where we want to do our first single crochet. So pushing it all down and getting your hook in to come up into that first stitch, some tension, one single crochet. And one single crochet into the next stitch. So that finishes our round. Now pull your hook up, make a nice big loop, and put your hook in to the center of these flowers. So if you pull those petals apart, you can kind of see down into that center. Put your hook in and out your chain 3, your ring at the bottom. We want to take this tail and bring our tail through. So loop it onto your hook and bring that tail through the center. And now pull it while you try to inside out this flower. So we're insiding it out now. To kind of roll and pull. There we go. We don't want to break our yarn, but that will help. And see how our petals are now facing up, which is what we want, away. So now we are ready to start the next row. So shrink that loop back down on your hook. And we're going to do just one row of our 6 single crochets. You can kind of make sure here that you have your 6. So there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, which is what we like. And again, if you're going to get interrupted, you can pop a stitch marker into the stitch we just did. So that is the last of our 6. Where we finish off our row. So now we can keep going around. We want to do 1 single crochet into each stitch. So there'll be 6 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 is right where our stitch marker is. So you can take your stitch marker out. We are going to start our petals. So to start your petal, chain 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Into the 3rd chain, picot, so that's a slip stitch into the 3rd chain. Half double crochet into the next stitch. Double crochet into the next stitch or the next chain. And half double crochet into the last. Now we look for our next stitch right here, and we single crochet into the next 2. So there is 1 single crochet, and into the next stitch, our 2nd single crochet. 1 more petal, so chain 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Roll your chain onto the side, look for that 3rd stitch. 3rd stitch from your hook. And picot, so slip stitch into the 3rd chain. Wrap your yarn and 1 half double crochet into the next. 1 double crochet into the next. And 1 half double crochet into the last. So all your petals are going to be like this. Now looking for our next stitch, right here, 1 single crochet, and 1 single crochet into the next. So always 2 single crochets between our petals. And start your next petal. So chain 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Roll your chain onto the side, picot, so slip stitch into the 3rd. half double crochet into the next, double crochet into the next, and half double crochet into the last. Look for your next stitch right here and make 1 single crochet. Now if you are doing small flowers, the next stitch you'll make is a slip stitch into the next stitch. A chain 1, you will cut your yarn and sew in your tail, just the tail you just finished, and that would be your small size flower. For the full size flower, we would be doing our 2 single crochets like usual. And now we want to ignore these petals again to cinch them together, but we're going to be doing it from the inside. So it's a little easier this time around, but we're going to still look for those 2 stitches in between our petals, and we're going to be working into that first one right here. So we're going to be doing 1 single crochet and 1 single crochet. So 2 single crochets between each petal. So now just kind of push that petal out of the way, working in from the front, 1 single crochet, and into the next 1 single crochet. So we're always keeping our 6 single crochets. Pushing the next petal out of the way, the next petal, into that first single crochet. We do 1 single crochet and 1 single crochet. Push the next petal out of the way, just pretend it's not there. And now we have 2 stitches over here. So this is our first single crochet right here, and our second is here. So push the petal out of the way and into that first single crochet, 1 single crochet. Just like that. So now our petals are taken care of. Now we're going to go around doing our 6 single crochets. So each of those stitches gets a new single crochet. We're going to do that for 2 rows. So we're going to count to 12. So 12 single crochets, 1 into each stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 11, and 12. Now we are ready to start our last row of petals. So chain 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Picot into the third. So slip stitch into the third chain. Half double into the next. Double into the next, 1 double crochet. And 1 half double crochet into the last. Single crochet into the next 2 stitches. So 1 single crochet, and into the next stitch, 1 more single crochet. And a petal, so chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Roll your chain to the side, picot into the third stitch, so slip stitch into the third chain. Wrap your yarn, half double crochet into the next. Double crochet into the next. And half double into the last. 1 half double crochet. 2 single crochets, 1 into each of the next 2 stitches. 1 and 2. And our last petal, so chain 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. picot into the third, so slip stitch into the third stitch. Wrap your yarn, half double into the next, double into the next, 1 double crochet, and 1 half double crochet into the last stitch right there. So now to finish off, single crochet into that next stitch, 1 single crochet, slip stitch into the next. So just bring your yarn back and turn your hook, chain 1, cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in, just a couple inches. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. So this tail here, we're going to sew in. So we're going to sew that in right now before we get confused. To sew it in, just pick that next stitch and bring your needle down into your work. Just to get rid of that little slip stitch a little bit. Stretch it so it's not too tight, and then go back the other direction. Using sharp tip needles really help so your ends don't come out. I have a link to these in the description box down below. Your tail will not come out. So now snip off the tail, and that is your first flower done. So now make 1 of these flowers for every stem that you have made. Now for the center of the flowers, get your lighter shade of your flower, and again you want to leave about a 3 or 4 inch tail, and just make a slip knot and shrink it down onto your 4mm hook and chain 15. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, rolling your chain onto its side, look for the 5th chain or the 5th back loop. So the first one is right underneath your working yarn. So that is 1, 2, and 3. We want to be working into that 3rd back loop. So into the 3rd back loop, just slide it onto your hook and slip stitch. So we're doing another picot. And now slip stitch into each of these back loops. We're going to slip stitch all the way back up our chain. Just like this. So you can pause the video and keep putting 1 slip stitch into each back loop all the way up your chain until you reach the top. So there is my last slip stitch. Chain 1 and cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to get up your flower. Pull your hook up and your yarn through, snug that down, and now make the same amount of these as you have flowers and as you have leaves. To assemble your flowers, get your small crochet hook, your 4mm, just poke it up the center, taking care to not get into your flower or into your stitches, just into that center space. Kind of push your flower down so your hook is out the top. Get your loops of yarn from your tail. Both loops on your hook, kind of try to give a little pinch and slide it through your flower. And then just pull it so it's snug, so we know where our tail is. And stretch your flower back down. You can kind of adjust if you want these to be longer or shorter. So this is a chain 15 with a regular size, like that. Now with your 2 tails, thread 1 of them onto your needle. And now we just want to pick a strand of yarn. Maybe like that. Bring it through. And now we're going to knot these 2 tails. So give it a knot, shrink it down, pull a little bit tight but not crazy. And now 1 more knot and really pull this one tight. That one you really, really pull. Like that. And this is only to hold the center of your flower in. And now we can snip off just the tails from our inner flower, our stamen. snip them off right at that knot. So that's what it looks like. We're going to hide this when we stitch it onto our leaf. We won't see that at all. And we keep our coral tail, the tail from our flower, ready to sew on our flowers later. Some ways to customize your flowers. If you want them shorter, you can start your petals right after you have cinched in the petals of the previous row. That'll give you a nice short flower. And you can also make shorter chains, and you can customize how long you want it to hang out. So this is a chain 10. And how you would do that is you can kind of pull it out as long as you want it to be, and then knot it. So then you would sew in your tails like usual, and then you can kind of adjust how much you want it to stick out. None at all or really far, whatever you want it to be, just by making a shorter stamen and adjusting it before you sew in your tails. So I hope that makes your cactus a little bit unique and gives you some ideas. So now go ahead and make as many flowers as you have leaves. When you have enough leaves and enough flowers, you are ready to sew them together. First, I'm going to get rid of this green tail a little bit. I'm just going to sew it down so it's out of the way, out of the working area. So pop that onto your needle, and I'm just going to follow my stitches on the back side, just down underneath those fat bits, just so it's out of the way, but I still have it if I need it. Just like that. And now we're going to put the hook of the wire inside the center of our flower, and we're just going to try to hook something. And I mean try. We're going to hook something, but you have to try a couple times. So make sure the bottom of your hook is open. It's able to grab some yarn, and slide it in there, and just kind of turn it and bring it down a few times until it grabs something and isn't coming out. So now mine's kind of stuck. And I'm happy with that. It doesn't have to be stuck like really, really good. We're going to be stitching it together, but it helps a smudge. Now find the cute part of your flower, if you have a part you like better than the others, and thread your flower yarn. So I'm going to start on the pretty side of my leaf, so the little V's on the outside are facing up. This is the side we want to look the prettiest. And wherever that yarn's coming from, I'm just going to find just a bit of that green yarn and push it all the way through to the other side. And then I'm just going to be taking a strand of the flower yarn. Doesn't have to be a strand, just a piece of it, right near that edge, and pulling it down and going into the green. So into the green, just at that top edge, just grabbing a bit of it. Get that petal out of the way a sec. And then getting a piece of the flower just through, snugging it down, grabbing a piece of the green. Now we're going to be working around in a circle, so it'll be easier now. So grabbing the next little bit of the flower and a bit of the green. So we're just going along into the green and along into the flower, and that will pinch it all together. It'll also cover up where we did our knot for the inside stamen of the flower. So a little of the flower, pull it down, and a little of the leaf. So there is our flower. It is nice and sturdy. It's not droopy because we have the wire inside there. And now just go back and forth from one side of your flower out the other. Do that a couple times, just like that. And then cut your tail. And we can sew in our green tail. If we had any of our flower coming down too far, we could have taken our green yarn back up and just kind of covered it up a little bit with green yarn. But I'm happy with how it looks. It looks flowery. So now sew in your green tail and we are ready to assemble. We still have the tail at the end where our wire is sticking out. We want to keep this tail. So we just finished off the flower end. And there it is. So now keep going, putting a flower onto every leaf, and I will meet you when you are done this step. So to make the dirt Get your 5mm hook and your brown or dirt colored yarn and make a slip knot. You do not need to leave a very long tail, maybe just like 1 inch. Shrink that slip knot down and put it onto your hook and chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. We're going to work into the very first chain we made right here, right on top of our slip knot, and make a ring. If you wanted to do a magic ring, you could do that as well. So now hold your tail down along the side of your work and hold it into a little U shape so you can hold that space open with your finger and thumb and slip stitch to form a ring. So just bring that yarn through both loops. Chain 1 and make 6 single crochets into the center of that ring. So right in 6 single crochets. There is 1, 2, 3, I'm working over my tail, 4, 5, and 6. So there is our 6 single crochets, and we are going to make our next single crochet into our first single crochet right here. So this is our chain 1 on this side. We're jumping over, so it looks like we're ignoring everything. Another way you can do it is count your stitches. So you don't count what's on your hook, you count these V's behind. So there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we're going to go into the 6th stitch right here. So into the 6th stitch, we're going to make 1 single crochet. So just pull up your yarn. You want to close up that ring. Bring your yarn through, wrap your yarn, and take off 2. And do your single crochet. Just like that. Now we can put a stitch marker on that first stitch right underneath our hook. That is the first stitch of the row. So we can just mark that with a stitch marker. If you don't have a stitch marker, you can use a paper clip or a bobby pin or a piece of yarn. And now into the very same stitch, we're going to do 1 more single crochet. So for this round, every stitch gets 2 single crochets. So there's 2. Into the next stitch, it's a bit hard to see with this dark yarn, but it is right here. We're going to do 2 single crochets. 1 and 2. Into the next stitch, 2 single crochets, 1 and 2. Into the next stitch, 2 single crochets. We're going to put 2 single crochets into every stitch all the way along until we get back to our stitch marker. 1 and 2. Our last stitch before the stitch marker. 1 and 2. So that is round 2 finished, and our next stitch will move our stitch marker up. So you can move this stitch marker up every row as you go along. A faster way of doing it is using a longer piece of yarn, because we're going to be marking our stitch the whole way along our work. So I'm going to take this stitch marker out and make our first single crochet into the next stitch. Pull my hook up just so you can see. So this is our first stitch of our new row. So I'm just going to take my long strand of yarn in a contrasting color you can see. I'm going to go right into that stitch I just made right here. So that is the stitch I just made, and I'm just going to bring that through. Just a bit of it, like that. So that is just going to hang there, and it's going to mark our first stitch of the row. So that's 1 single crochet into the stitch. And I'm just going to pull this tail down into the center just to get it out of the way. There we are. So that is what it looks like. So our first stitch is 1 single crochet into the stitch. Our next stitch, 2 single crochets. We're going to do an increase every other stitch. So 2 single crochets into the second stitch, 1 crochet into the next, 2 into the stitch after that, That's 2 single crochets into the same stitch, 1 single crochet into the next, increase into the stitch after that. So an increase is 2 single crochets into the same stitch. So 1 single crochet by itself, and then 2 single crochets together. And we're going to do that all the way along this round. So 1 single crochet by itself, and 2 single crochets together. 1 single crochet by itself, and 2 single crochets together. So now we are back at our stitch that has that yarn in it. That is the first stitch of our next row. So I'm just going to flip our yarn in front, like that, and into that stitch, I'm going to make 1 single crochet. And now our yarn has marked that stitch. So we're just going to loop it up and down as we get to it to mark our next round. So for this round we just started, I've done 1 single crochet. So we're going to do 2 single crochets by themselves. So 1 single crochet into 2 stitches, and then an increase. So the third stitch will get 2 single crochets, 1 and 2. So 1 single crochet by itself, another single crochet by itself, and then 2 single crochets together, 1 and 2. 1 single crochet by itself, a second single crochet by itself, and 2 single crochets together, 1 and 2. So you can pause the video and keep working your way along, doing 1 single crochet and 1 single crochet into each stitch for 2 stitches, and then an increase of 2 single crochets together. So for this round, we're spacing out our increase by 2 stitches. So 1 single crochet by itself, another single crochet by itself, and then 2 single crochets together. So you can pause the video and keep working along, and I'll meet you when you get back to your stitch marker. Now we're back at our yarn, so just toss that behind and kind of hold it out of the way. And into that stitch is the start of our next round. So for the next round, we're going to do 3 single crochets by themselves and then our increase. So into the first 3 single crochets, 1 single crochet into each stitch. There is 1, 2, and 3. So 3 single crochets all by themselves, and then an increase, so 2 single crochets together. So 3 single crochets, 1 into each of the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3, and 2 single crochets together into the next. So there's 1 and 2. So we're going to keep working our way along, doing 3 single crochets by themselves. 1, 2, and 3. And then 2 single crochets into the next stitch. So that's our increase. 1 and 2. So you can pause the video and keep working your way along, doing 3 single crochets by themselves and 2 single crochets into the next stitch, all the way along until you reach back to our stitch marker. And you'll know you are doing it right when you get back to that last stitch right before your stitch marker, and that is your increase. So 2 single crochets into the stitch before your stitch marker, and that just means you did your increase correctly. Don't worry about it if it is not totally lined up for you. It is absolutely fine. All we need to do is 6 increases per round. It doesn't even matter where they are. If you keep putting them exactly like we are now, you'll see you'll get a little bit of a hexagon. And if you space them out wherever you feel like, you can turn it into a real square. It's not totally going to matter, but if you make it really, really big, you'll want to space out your increases to where it is flat. You don't want to make it into a total hexagon. So 6 increases per round, doesn't matter where they are. So now we're right back to where our yarn is. We're going to put that to the back. And for the next round, we're going to do 5 single crochets and then our increase. So how I'm going to keep track of that, I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so increase, 1 and 2. So you can pause the video and keep going along, doing 5 single crochets by themselves and then 2 single crochets together, all the way along until you get back to our stitch marker. So there we are back at our stitch marker. I'm just going to throw that yarn to the front. And we're ready to start our next round. So our next round is going to have 6 single crochets by themselves and then an increase or 2 single crochets into the 7th stitch. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. I'm going to start my increase here because I want to keep it nice and round. So I'm do my increase into the 4th, 1 and 2. Now I'm going to do 6 single crochets, 1 into each stitch, and then an increase all the way around. So how I'm going to do that, what I'm going to be telling myself is I'm just going to count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then increase. So I'm just going to say ink, 1, 2. So that is my increase, 2 single crochets into the stitch. So you can pause the video and keep working along, doing 6 single crochets, 1 into each stitch, and then an increase of 2 single crochets into the same stitch, all the way along. 5, 6, ink. So you can pause the video and keep working your way around, making 6 single crochets, 1 into each stitch, and then an increase of 2 single crochets into the same stitch, all the way along until you reach back to our stitch marker. So there we are back at our stitch marker. So I'm going to just put that yarn behind, and you can see how it is just marking our stitch all the way along. So we know where we started. And now you're just going to keep going, making this as big as you need it to be, adding 1 single crochet in between your increases, or just managing your 6 increases per round until it is the right size for your terracotta pot. So I have completed 17 rows. And it is about 8.5 inches wide for my pot. And my pot is about 9 inches interior diameter. So it looks like that. Smaller than what you think by a bit, 1/2 inch or so. Now we're going to keep going around and around without increasing. So we don't have to use our stitch marker anymore. We can just leave it right there, and it'll still mark where we are starting. So now we're just going to go around and around without increasing. So now just 1 single crochet into every stitch, and that will start sloping our dirt down, and it'll kind of dome up. It'll take a couple rows to get the shape started, so don't worry about that. It's not going to be a very abrupt edge, but it'll just look really great in your pot like a pile of dirt. So now keep going around, putting 1 single crochet into each stitch for 2 rows. So there is the 2 rows. You can just count that you have completed 2 rows after your stitch marker. So if I was going to keep going, that'd be the 3rd row. And that is enough single crochets. We can start doing half double crochets to go down the side, and we're going to start doing some decreases. For the decreases, we're going to kind of match the shape of your pot. Some pots are more decreasey than other pots. This pot would not be too much decreasing. This pot's a lot of decreasing. So you're just going to have to eyeball it depending on your pot. So we can start by doing half double crochets, just a few of them. It'll go quicker. 2, 3. So to do a half double crochet decrease, start your double crochet in 1 stitch, and in the next stitch, start your second. So you'll end up having all 5 loops on your hook. Wrap your yarn and take off all 5. So we have started a double crochet in both stitches, but we have finished just with the one. So that is a half double crochet decrease. And now you could just do a few more regular half double crochets, 1 into each stitch. And you just kind of eyeball how often you want to do that. We're still working in a spiral. We're just changed our stitch, and instead of increasing, we are decreasing. So for this first round of half double crochets, I'm not going to decrease that much. Maybe I'll just put in around 6. So I've done 1. When I get a little farther around, I'm not counting my stitches or anything. I'm just working my way around. Maybe now I'll do a decrease. So I've done a decrease here, and I'll do a decrease here. Doesn't matter. So start 1 and start the second. Wrap your yarn and turn your hook facing down and slide it through all of those loops. And now keep going again. If you wanted to even them out, you could divide your circle into 6, like 6 pieces of pizza, put a stitch marker there, and you could decrease when you get to that stitch marker. So I've done a decrease, a decrease, I'll do another decrease. So this will be my third. So start my half double crochet, start my second half double crochet, grab my yarn, turn my hook facing down, and slide all those loops off. And then just keep going. So you can pause the video and keep working around, putting in around 6 decreases as you work your way around, and I'll meet you when we get back to our stitch marker. So we're back to our stitch marker area. We've done the 1 row with some decreases here and there. And we're just gonna do that again. So going around, putting in 6 decreases. If you want to even out your decreases, you can pop in stitch markers. Just like at 6 o'clock and 12 o'clock. And then maybe 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock. And then when you get to those stitch markers, you will know that it's time to do a decrease. And this is optional. You can completely just wing it and put in your decreases. So you can do this way if you are more comfortable with it, or just keep going around decreasing. So keep going around, 6 decreases per round. And just eyeball it so that it matches your terracotta pot. So that's 3 rounds of half double crochet decreases. Now I'm just going to take these stitch markers out and move them to a new spot. Looking from the side, you can see that it is decreasing, but it is not crazy yet. It's not a crazy decrease. So depending on the shape of your pot, you can do 6 decreases or 12 decreases for this round. I'm going to do 12 decreases, so 1 at every stitch marker and 1 in between my stitch markers, just till I get the shape starting to really cinch in. So I'm going to decrease in between the stitch markers and at the stitch markers. So 12 decreases for mine, for this row and my pot. So I have completed my 3rd row of half double crochets, and now we're just going to do 6 decreases per row until our dirt is the same kind of size and shape as our plant pot. So put your stitch markers around like a clock, or you can count your stitches and divide it evenly. And just keep reminding yourself to make a decrease every time you get to a stitch marker area. When your stitch markers are too far down, you can just move them on up or take them all out and assign your clock face again, or divide it into 6 pizza slices. So I've completed 10 rows of the half double crochets, and now you can kind of line it up with your pot. I want my dirt to be around there, So if you kind of roll them together, you can see how many rows you have left to do. I'm going to keep doing 4 decreases a row for the next 3 rows, and then that should be tall enough to be my dirt. Now that my dirt is about this diameter I want it to be at the bottom of my pot, I'm just going to keep going, making 1 double crochet into each stitch for another couple rows until I have the height I need it to be to match my pot. So now I'm just going to do 2 rows, 1 half double crochet into each stitch. So I did 1 row of double crochets, no increases, and that has me at the right height. If you just lay your dirt along the edge of your pot, giving yourself some space where the terracotta pot hasn't started yet, and roll it up the side, you'll see where your dirt is going to be. It'll be about right there. So that's where I want my plant to start inside my pot. So now we're ready to close it off at the bottom, but I'm not going to close it off until I have my plant inside. The sticks, the wires, I can twist them right now because the opening is nice and big, so I'm going to leave my yarn attached. So now it's time to start assembling the plant. So I have a bunch that are long. They have 6 sections to the leaves, and I have a bunch that are short. These are 5 sections for my leaves. We're going to divide them up. So we're going to start with 3. The next row is going to have 5. The row after that, we're going to do 7. And the last row around is going to have 9. Now, the 9 is optional. This makes it super, super big. Or you could just use these 15 and have a medium-sized cactus. Anyway, start with your 3 small ones. Take your crochet dirt. And I'm just going to put a little bit of stuffing inside. Just a bit, so I can push those wires into something other than just the crochet. So I didn't put very much stuffing, just a bit. Just a little bit to hold those wires. So taking your first 3 and lining them up on the bottom edge. I'm going to put 2 facing each other, so pretty sides in, and 1 sandwiching those together like that. And all I'm paying attention to is that my crochet is at the same level down here. So grab those wires. Don't worry about the tails. Pinch the wires together. And we're going to go right in to the center of our crochet. It's pushing those wires straight in all the way. And that is going to be the start of our cactus. I'm going to use these tails to sew them in, but leaving them for now. From the inside, we want to stretch our crochet and feel where these are going to be tight. We want the crochet to be nice and taut. So it's about here on the inside. So you can take your pliers and you can twist these together so they are happy and stuck. You can go ahead and pull out that yarn we used to keep track of where we started if it's in the way. And now you can sew in these tails for our leaves. We just want to pin them down just around that very first ring, the very first round. And it doesn't have to be pretty because we are covering up, we're putting even more. So we just go around and around a few times until it is secure. When it's nice and secure, just push that yarn into the center, and we can tie those all together later. And then just repeat that with all of the tails. When you have your 2 tails, you can knot them. Leave them hanging. Don't cut them off for now. We can always use the same yarn to tie another one in. So our third one, we will stitch here. And then just going around the outside of those 3, I'm just going to grab a couple stitches of the edge of those leaves and stitch them down into the work. So that is nicely sewn in all around the center, and knot it with one of those other tails. Nice tight knot. Leave those tails, you don't have to cut them. And now with your pliers, if you didn't twist them before, you can really twist them now. And then that center is really sturdy. So now we're ready for the next round. We're going to put 5 of these cactus leaves a little bit farther out, the next row over. So take your next 5, and these we're going to put in individually, just to space them out. So you want to make sure your flower is nicely stretched. Just kind of keeping a track of how much wire is left at the end of your flower once you have it pulled nicely tight. And poke that into your... So now I'm going to go 1 row over, and I still want my pretty side of my stitches facing the center because everything is going to flip out. So pretty side facing the middle, and the next row in. So I'm just going to put my wire straight in to one of those spaces and then sew this on. So I'm not really worried about the wire right now. I'm just going to take my yarn and grab some stitches and just secure that tail to start. And then I'm going to grab the edge stitch, 2 strands of that edge stitch, and kind of pull it down and stitch that to the next stitch over. To make sure we're just covering up some distance. And I'm going to do that on the other side. So I'm going to get my yarn back, grab a stitch on the outside of that leaf, and grab a stitch on the other side. So I'm making every leaf about 3 stitches wide just by sewing down the edges like that. And now I'm just going to secure the rest, use up my yarn a little bit, and then put that tail down into the center. Find another tail nearby and knot those together. 1, 2. Then we can pull that flower up a little bit to get these leaves nice and stretched. I'm holding the wire on the inside. That's about as tall as I can get it. Flipping it over, and now I'm going to use my pliers and wind that leaf around. And now bend that wire around the same stalk. So keep adding a leaf, skipping a stitch, and putting your next one into that second space. So I'll put 1 here, and I would stitch this in before I put another. And then that would get stitched in and cover up that hole, and then just skip and then add another one over here, and just keep working your way around and around until all of your stalks have been added. Just a tip, when you're doing your circle, make it the full size of your pot. I made mine a bit smaller, and it fits, but I would like it a bit more snug. So go ahead and make your circle the same diameter as the inside of your pot. So now we're ready to close it up. We're just going to do decreases along the bottom. So start your half double crochet, start your second half double crochet, wrap your yarn and take off all the loops. So you can do about 6 of those per row. Doesn't matter, nobody's going to see it. And eventually we're just going to be doing decrease, 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 and then we can cinch it together. So just keep working your way along, doing 6 decreases per row, or whatever feels comfortable for you. And I'll see you when it gets a little bit smaller of an opening. So now we are ready to decrease, and how I'm going to do that, I'm going to do 4 half double crochets, just regular, 1 into each stitch. There is 2, 3, and 4. And into the 5th, I'm going to start my decrease. So start a half double, and into the 6th, start a half double, wrap my yarn, and take off all 4 loops. So I'm just going to do a decrease every 5th stitch until my opening gets smaller. When your opening is getting real small, you can start decreasing more often. So I'm going to do 2 half double crochets, 1 and 2, and then a decrease. So you're just doing it more often to close that up. So 2 half doubles and then a decrease of 2 half doubles together. So 1 and 2, and then a decrease. So start your half double, wrap and start your second half double, wrap and take off all those loops. And just keep doing that for a little bit. So then when it is about 1.5 inches across, or 3 centimeters, I'm going to do a decrease and a half double crochet. So half double crochet, decrease. Half double crochet, decrease. Just like that. Maybe we'll do this around, and then we're just going to do decreases. So now it's about 1 inch, and now we're just going to decrease. So every 2 stitches, and now we're just going to decrease. So every 2 stitches becomes 1 stitch. So decrease, decrease, decrease. Now my hole's really small, so I'm going to keep trying to decrease until I can't. Probably about like that. So there is still a hole in the bottom. So chain 1, cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail. We're going to sew that little hole shut with our needle. Pull your hook up and your yarn through, snug that down. Grab a needle. For this one, I'm going to be using a blunt tip because I just want to go into the stitches between the yarn. So now I'm just going to weave in and out of the stitches that I have left. And that's my last stitch. So cinch that all up. And now you can sew in your tail. Now put your dirt into your plant pot and arrange your leaves. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial as much as I did. I'm waiting for you in that video right there, and stay hooked.